So first of all, just a bit about Renewed Hope and what we do. So this is focused mainly on drop-in volunteering and any volunteering that happens with guests. So the drop-in is how Renewed Hope started way back 10, 12 years ago. It started as a drop-in in Salvation Army Chapel. It wasn't Renewed Hope then. And out of that came Night Shelter. So it's really what Renewed Hope has always been about. We ran the East Surrey Winter Night Shelter, but drop-in continued all the way through. And actually, even as a volunteer, as a Winter Night Shelter volunteer, I didn't realise that drop-in was there in the background. And now it's grown to be really the biggest thing we do. So it's a safe space for anyone who comes and a place where they can be accepted, and building community for those who don't have it. It's like a big family. People know they can come in and not be judged. They're going through really tough times, and they know that being there, it's okay to go through a tough time. So that it makes it quite a special place, actually. And then it's a place for signposting and support. So none of the staff are debt advisors or mental health workers or drug and alcohol workers or anything like that. We signpost to organisations out there who can support people better. So we're a hub. And then most recently, in February, we opened a house for 4 previously homeless men. We've now housed 6 people in there. So 2 of the existing residents are still there, and 2 more have come on after 2 moving on. And that's a supported accommodation. So we have a support worker, Michelle, who supports them in that house and supports all the guys in the drop-in, guys and girls in the drop-in as well. So the team. So I'm Anna, should have introduced myself at the beginning. I'm Anna, I'm project coordinator and overall responsible for overall day-to-day running. Yvonne is the one you most have contact with because she's always emailing to fill slots on shifts, and she'll give you updates about what food that needs using up. She's also our administrator, so she does a lot with finance. Michelle, I've mentioned, she's our support worker. She's the person on hand to support the guests, and probably the first thing they'll say as you come in is Michelle in? Can I speak to her? Then it might be, is Anna in then? So she's in high demand, and we try and control how much they keep leaning on her, but she's brilliant. And then Andrew is our fundraising coordinator, and yeah, if you got any ideas, mostly the fundraising team are on this call, but yeah, so hang on a moment. Okay, so the roles that we've got in the drop-in. So drop-in leader, who leads the team, responsible for safe running, and they delegate. And they will register all the attendees, including visitors. So we have a register, first name, second name, and anyone who comes through the door. So we can see who we haven't seen for a few days. We have a record. Yvonne inputs it all on the system, and we know who's been in and how often they're attending, things like that. So I say they keep track of guests. It's quite a busy place, the chapel, and there's quite a few holes. The toilets and the outside space are quite difficult places to keep an eye on. So they might be looking around the room and thinking, right, okay, they're over there. How are they doing? So and so doesn't, needs a bit of conversation. So I see a lot of that, and they do sometimes. And then there's paperwork that they fill in at the beginning and the end of their shifts. A separate leader training, by the way. And actually, you might get asked quite soon whether you'd like to be a leader. Yvonne's quite good at identifying skills in people and then inviting them to shadow a shift. So don't be offended if that's what she ends up doing. Drop-in assistants, so they support the leader. Ideal to have 2 assistants plus the leader in the main area. Now, we haven't been that busy recently, but on busy days, you need 3 people in there just to cover yourselves and, you know, cover those areas, make sure everything's running smoothly. Someone making tea while another person checks how someone is. So it can be quite busy. Oh, and then the kitchen team. So kitchen supervisor and an assistant preparing the food on site. We're a food business registered with the environmental health. So we do like to have volunteers who are doing it regularly, food hygiene trained, so level 2, and we can organise that for you. So if you're regular volunteering in the kitchen, then that's something we would like you to do if you haven't already got that. There must be 2 volunteers in the hall at all times. And I mention this again, is about covering each other, not being on your own with the guests. So you're safe and they're safe. And really looking after each other, making sure, you know, it is running safely, supporting the leader in the chapel area. Okay, so it's just a few other roles that we do. We do have some volunteers work one-to-one with guests. They are usually with our house residents. We have maintenance things going on and gardening. We have a garden at the house, and then we have other bits. So one thing on there is not fundraising, actually. Fundraising our collections that we're doing a lot of. Driving DIY, and we have clothes and food that need sorting regularly. So these are in our handbook and form the basis of the volunteer agreement. First one, treat guests with respect. I mean, also volunteers, everyone. It goes without saying, really. Don't give out your personal details, including your last name. So we do everything with first name. We do have some name badges that volunteers can wear. Don't give away any money, gifts, including clothes, food and toiletries. If anyone needs anything, they can come to us. Okay, so come to the charity. So if you hear someone, you know, saying, oh, you know, I haven't had shoes for ages, flag that up as a support need with Michelle or another member of staff. Don't contradict the drop-in leader or supervisor, staff in front of guests. So often, you know, if you've got children, you'll know, don't contradict yourself in front of the children. So it's having a united front. So you might disagree with what the leader might be saying, or member of staff, why have they made that decision. Just leave it for a quiet moment afterwards. Don't give advice, make promises you can't keep. So the one-to-one guest roles, that might be somewhere where we've had someone who's got specialist skills, and if you have, then great, and we'd like to use them, then let us know. But we'll talk a little bit more about sort of attachment forming, and them being sort of looking to you for things, for advice, and then don't be alone with a guest. Call on another volunteer to be present. And then not as applicable now, we're not doing night shelter, but still it's key. Don't search guest bags or clothing. So once we had an interesting one where someone saw a bottle of vodka in someone's bag. He was there, and we knew he'd had a drink. So, you know, yeah, we've seen it, but we sorry, phone on silent. But yeah, if suspected, we don't do anything with that. Report it though. You report it to the leader or report it to a member of staff. Okay, so boundaries and safeguarding. So we don't DBS volunteers, generally speaking, only for these one-to-one roles. We're not allowed to request that level of information for people for the roles that you're doing, the kind of tasks that you're doing. So that's not needed. That's why it is key for safeguarding to not be alone with a guest. Engage with the guests, but wait for them to tell you their stories. So they'll normally want to chat just about everyday stuff, really. Nothing too complicated. They come there to really not be aware of their problems. They will tell you stuff. They will open up to you, definitely. But wait for them to do that. Beware of your own self-disclosure and attachment forming. So that's about really guarding yourself. Some people don't like to mention that they've got children. Some people, you know, definitely areas of your, you know, where you live, absolutely don't share. And attachment forming, we relate to each other as human beings, and it may be that, you know, someone finds you really easy to talk to. It's our job to keep those boundaries up, because they very often don't have boundaries. And I'm talking they. So in drop-in, we have about 2/3 people aren't homeless. They are housed, vulnerable, isolated. Some of them were previously homeless, and they may have been on winter night shelter, and they've come back. They've come back to drop-in. They may just be, is that part of that family? So they not necessarily coming back because they're in a tough place. They might just come in because it's part of their routine, and that's what they've done as part of their support network. If something a guest shares with you concerns you, tell a member of staff. You could tell a leader first, but tell a member of staff. We may not know everything that they share with you guys as volunteers. And no contact with a guest outside the charity or the drop-in setting. And as I said before, don't be alone with a guest for safeguarding and just to keep everyone safe. They're not dangerous people at all. It's not about that. It is just making sure everyone is safe. So what to talk about if we can't talk about too much about ourselves, or, you know, we're going to keep things guarded. So steering clear emotive subjects, politics, maybe religion, things like that. We're a Christian charity, but we don't share faith. There are churches out there who do that, and I suppose it's like signposting. So we will, you know, if someone expresses that they want to connect with any faith group, then we will say, well, you know, there's these things, just as we would signpost for other services. Talk about general stuff, and really, as I said, they don't really want to go heavy. Generally, they might talk generally about how they are, but you'll be surprised. We've got some people with dogs, so they become the topic of conversation. Okay, so don't say we shared personal details. Don't ask them why they're here or what, you know, that might just provoke something. And don't advise how they can get help. Let us get on with that. You know, we don't want you having to do that and have that burden. Okay, right. Okay, so if I don't know if you've got your microphones on, but just talk about this scenario. So it's talking about boundaries. You go outside to check who's out there, and David collars you to tell you something. He's known you for a while because you shop in the co-op where he works. He tells you his girlfriend has kicked him out and stopped him seeing their children. You're called back in by the leader as they need help serving dinner, and you excuse yourself politely. So what do you do next?
I guess, would you mention it to the leader, because they may not know he's been kicked out and is potentially homeless now and resentful of the girlfriend if he can't see the children?
Yeah, that's it. So it's a hand it straight over to someone else. He obviously feels he wants to speak to you about it. Maybe he feels he's got a connection with you because you know he recognised you outside of the drop-in area, but you're there as a volunteer. You're not a customer in the shop. You're there as a volunteer, and yeah, absolutely, you just signpost him straight to the leader and then the leader will tell member of staff, or you may see that one of the members of staff, me or Michelle, usually downstairs already, just come over and say, look, David, I don't think we have a David at the moment. David's really struggling. You might want to see him, and that's a kind of thing that needs dealing with on the day. So he's expressed something. You know, we can connect him with the council, establish what his situation is, but he's in crisis. So yeah. So anything else that comes to mind for anyone?
You invite him indoors. I mean, you made a point about saying stay in the hall area. Make sure you're in sight of someone else. So as you're going in, though, rather than just leave him out there, you invite him in.
Invite him, yeah. So he may be reluctant to come in. Yeah, good point. It's getting colder now, but yeah, it can be a place where they sort of, I don't want to go in yet. I'm going to hide. Yes. So just some of these things to think about. Oops. So what to do when you see someone you recognise when you come to volunteer? It happens on occasion. We had something once where someone knew someone professionally years back in a support role. So the volunteer was in a support role of one of the guests that were in. And so this volunteer just said, oh, they recognise me. I actually, they couldn't remember the person, but obviously there was some kind of connection there. So if you feel it's of concern, then tell us. I would say remember which hat you've got on when you're there, and if you feel uncomfortable and you need help from us doing that, I say really rare, explaining to the person that this person's here for a different reason. They're just coming along to volunteer. That's it. That's what we did with this volunteer. So you're reminiscing a bit. She was pleased to see him. It was quite a but it was just being clear to her that no, they were here to volunteer, and that was his role here. And then how do we respond to when we see a guest outside drop-in? I now and again get this when I'm at the bus stop or something, and they will see me and they'll want to just come and connect. Come tomorrow and drop in. I'll see you on, when you're coming in next. We'll catch up then, and sort of just politely close it down. Because again, it's not the place. If you're seeing them out there, you're not their support. So pass the buck back to Renewed Hope. And then, yeah, as you said, as the first point, tell a member of staff or the leader at the earliest opportunity. Okay, I'm going to talk a bit about trauma now. It's be a quite uncomfortable subject, but so trauma is used to describe emotional and physical reactions to events. The reason we're talking about this is we've all experienced some degree of trauma, and it will affect how we react to things, and we can't help but be affected by the trauma of the guys who come in to drop in, either, just because, you know, that we're there. However, you know, we're human beings. So it can be an effect of one-off events or things that are experienced over months or years. They may have a sense of being trapped, powerless, or unsupported in the face of perceived danger. And then it can be immediate, or it can emerge later after the trauma has passed, has subsided. And then it has a knock-on effect. So in drop-in, what we try and do is respond in a trauma-informed way. The Surrey and Borders Partnership Foundation Trust, the NHS, have been rolling out training into lots of different places, and they offered it to us as well, about trauma-informed care and trauma-informed practices, about how you are with vulnerable people, and also how we are supporting each other. It's about a whole ethos of how we support the whole project. So now then, I've got to just stop sharing for a moment and change my screen. Just going to watch a short video. It's about 8 minutes long, and it just talks about this in more detail. Can you see my screen? Oops. Oops, sorry, just a moment. Sorry, I need to do that. Now, it is targeted at NHS colleagues, but the principles apply to any setting. Okay. Can't hear it, can you? Oh, no. Yeah.
Whenever Mum went away, he would come into my room. He said I made him do it, and that it meant he loved me. It always made me feel powerless, ashamed.
I never knew when an argument would turn into a fight. I was always scared, always on edge, always had to be ready to defend myself.
My late husband was very controlling, always put me down, told me what to wear or cook. He'd get angry if I didn't do things right. I had no choice or control. It made me feel useless. I had no confidence in the end.
So I zoned out, pretended it wasn't happening. It's so difficult to trust people now. I just freeze and float away in my head when I feel powerless.
Now I just get angry a lot. Feel like I want to fight. Sometimes I worry I'm just like him.
I find it difficult to do things myself, and I get really nervous when I have to talk to new people. I avoid them when I can.
What we went through was traumatic because we were harmed, physically, emotionally, and felt like we were in real danger.
Traumatic experiences can be things that happen once, a serious accident or assault.
Or it can be where traumatic things keep happening, like physical or sexual childhood abuse, or domestic abuse, or relationships where you can't be yourself, where you're put down or bullied.
It can make you feel powerless, trapped, or betrayed. The sense of confusion, shame, or fear can be overwhelming, especially if there is no one you feel able to tell. Even after it's over, it's harder to get on with life and feel safe.
Trauma is more common than most people think. Almost 1 in 5 adults has experienced physical or sexual abuse in their childhood.
And more than a quarter of all women have experienced domestic abuse.
Some people recover after traumatic events. Some people aren't affected as much. Having good, safe, supportive relationships with other people can really help. But lots of people continue to be affected by trauma, sometimes long after it happened.
For most of us, traumatic or adverse childhood experiences like these affect our body's response to stress, affecting our physical health as well as our mental health. The impact of trauma can also make it harder for us to learn and to realise our full potential.
One of the most worrying things about the experience of trauma is that it can make us avoid people and places, even if they are there to help, like doctors, teachers, social workers, carers, colleges,
Councils, community centres, employers, advisors. Because most trauma experiences happen in relationships with other people, we can find it difficult to trust people or feel safe. And sometimes the way we react to help ourselves feel safe pushes people away and makes it even harder to get the help we need.
It's like our brains learn survival tricks to get us through the trauma at the time, like priming us for danger.
Making us run away.
shutting down when we feel upset.
It might look like we have a short fuse, like we're unfriendly, or we're just a bit absent.
Anything, however small, that reminds us of that trauma can set off our own unique trauma response to protect ourselves, making us avoid the people and places that we need the most, like you. But there are things you can do to help me trust you enough so I feel safe and I don't shut down or avoid you. You can offer me a different relationship that doesn't remind me of the one I had when I was a kid. One where I feel safe, I feel empowered, and I have choice and control over what happens to me. One where we work together and I can trust you. This is called being trauma-informed in the way you work.
Being trauma-informed means thinking about what will make me feel safe. It might mean offering me choice over the sex of the person offering me care or support, especially if it involves intimate care or examinations.
Unfortunately, your usual care worker Heather's off sick. We'll be sending someone else instead. Do you have any preferences about who comes instead?
Well, I'd feel more comfortable with someone I've met before. Most importantly, I'd like a woman.
Well, how about June? She's worked with us for 3 years. If there's anything you'd like her to do that Heather normally does, just ask.
Trauma-informed means empowering me to have control and take an active role in what happens to me.
We know some people don't like coming to the dentist, so is there anything that you're worried about or scared of? I can tell you each step I'm doing, so there are no surprises if you'd like. If you need me to stop, how will you tell me?
Trauma-informed means helping me to trust you by being clear about what will happen, doing what you say you will do when you said you would do it.
Unfortunately, our advisors are running about 30 minutes late. I'm so sorry about that. Are you able to stay, or can we make another appointment for you?
Many of us at work will have had our own experiences of trauma in our own lives, or we might witness or hear about it in the course of our work. So the same principles apply to all of us. We all need to take care of ourselves by making sure we're safe and connected to the people and activities that matter to us. Can you think of anyone you've met or worked with recently that a trauma-informed approach would have made a difference to? Are there any trauma-informed changes you might make that could make a difference?
So if you offer me safety and choice, if you collaborate with me and empower me and help me trust you, then you will help me work with you. Even if I only meet you once, even briefly, you can give me a different kind of relationship. One where I feel valued and valuable, connected and safe.
And when that happens over and over again with everyone that I meet, I can learn that it's safe to make connections with people.
It is those connections that we all need to access life chances and reach our full potential.
Okay. Okay. What I find with drop-in is you see those healthy relationships being made again. Because we're not the council or the job centre or anything else, we are part of that repair. So which is quite a special thing. Is there any comments on that video? No. Okay. We're gonna just talk a little bit about. Oh, go on.
I was just going to say it made the point well, and it's partly about looking after each other as well as about being really considerate to the guests and just thinking carefully about offering choice and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we won't always be able to give, honour that choice. I mean, actually, one person was very specific that they wanted Michelle to go to an appointment with them. And I said, well, is it urgent? Does it need to be done today? I can go if you like. And he said, no, it's all right because Michelle's been before. And that's fine. Absolutely fine. That was just end of just respect his decision. And that's fine. So I'm going to go back and share my presentation and talk about what this might look like. In practice. Okay. A regular is waiting outside when you arrive. You say hello and ring the bell to be let in. So before the session has started. You never remember his name, but he seems happy to see you. So there might be a bit of recognition there. A breeze causes the door to close quickly behind you. After a busy setting up, everyone realises it's gone 11. The leader goes to open the door. He walks in, avoiding eye contact, and goes and sits in his usual chair. You go over with the sign-in sheet, embarrassed as you apologise for not remembering his name. This might be the leader that does this if you're a new volunteer. He avoids the question and storms off into the toilet. Now I've kind of packed a whole load of stuff in here that it will probably never happen. When I ran this training and Michelle was there, she said he could have just needed the loo. So it's really good point. But yeah, just sort of talk about some of the things that might have touched a nerve with him as that sort of scenario played out. And it's remembering that nothing you've done is wrong. You didn't get it wrong at any point.
I guess, I mean, the risk is obviously that he feels he's sort of acknowledged you and smiled at you, but you appear to have slammed the door in his face, or that might be how it looks to him. Yeah, and so it's and also left him outside past the opening time of drop-in. So he could be just wanting to go to the loo, or he could be feeling really mad at you. And yeah, if you realise there's a potential perception that he's had the door slammed in his face and been left outside longer than necessary, I think perhaps one might give a bit more of an apology than just apologising for not remembering his name. Maybe saying, really sorry, that the door slammed and that we left you standing out there a while. I suppose I would, if I'd realised that might be what he was thinking, I might do that.
Yeah, and we don't often know. I mean, some people might so used to being ignored or bottom of the pecking order that they may not even know that that's why they're reacting to something. But again, it's nothing that don't take it personally. Which is really, really difficult sometimes. I mean, it could have really just been anything that happened that morning that they're not in a great space today for some reason, and our role is just welcome them in when and if they're ready. Cup of tea. Some of them don't want a cup of tea as soon as they walk through the door. Some of them want one every 15 minutes. So just about respecting everyone's different, and everyone has their own quirks, I suppose. The sign-in sheet, I suppose it could remind them of school or something. But we can make that, I mean, if you think you've offended them, then it might be just say, actually, maybe another volunteer goes and just breaks the ice or whatever. Again, there may be nothing wrong. It just may be that actually I mean, as you get to know people, you'll know that actually, oh, well, he's normally like that when he first comes in, and it's just a sort of maybe that they just need to come in and let off a bit of steam, or go and have a shower, or whatever it is, and then they reset and can sort of get on with the rest of the session and interact with people. And it's a safe space, so people do sometimes say, like, we throw our stuff to our nearest and dearest, don't we? And sometimes drop-in can be that space that people would just burst into tears because they feel safe enough to do so. And that's where
I guess the key point is whatever response you get back, don't take it personally. Just keep being polite and doing what we can within the boundaries of renewed hope.
Yeah, that's it. So just talked about some of this. If their reaction seems a bit irrational or over the top, then that might be a sign that we might have touched a nerve. Like we've said, not due to anything you've done wrong. And if there's anything of concern, anything of note that you think they don't seem quite right today, or they might be upset, share it with someone, share it with member of staff if possible. Obviously weekends are a bit different, but people tend to come with lower expectations on a weekend because there's generally no staff around. So they'll know that we're not going to be around. So we'll have said, well, look, we can catch up with that on Monday, or if it's a bank holiday, you know, we'll, they know generally there's not going to be someone there. So okay, that slide, we send the slides out. A little bit more about what this trauma-informed approach is about. So just having that safety choice, collaborating with the person, and we do actually involve the drop-inners in what's going on in drop-in. So we will ask them, you know, do you want to play bingo today? You know, it's sort of, you know, collaborative way. Trusting us, keeping those boundaries and empowering them where we can to make decisions. We're not the people who are going to sort all their problems out for them. We're helping them to connect with those and have good relationships with those agencies as well. Okay, food hygiene. As I said, anyone who is in the kitchen, we like to have the food hygiene training. But this is a really, really quick whistle stop through some key food hygiene tips. Clean hands, hair tied back, and no hand jewellery. And there's a hand washing sink near the door. So there's washing up sink and hand washing sink separate. Use colour coded chopping boards. So there's 5 different colours from memory, and hopefully the ones that we've got in drop-in actually have the labels of what they're all used for as well. So if you haven't done the training, it's still quite, you know, oh, okay, red is for meat, green is for veg. All food we serve must have the allergen details recorded. So the supervisor, the kitchen supervisor, do some paperwork at the end of the session where they say what food was served and all the allergens that were served on it. And then anything that's opened or has how we have leftovers, it's got to be labelled in the fridge. So most things in the fridge will have a label on them. And actually when they're opened is quite key, because there's lots of, we'll keep track of what's in our fridges at home generally, won't we? But because there's lots of different people in that kitchen, we don't know how long that tomato ketchup has been there. But we will do if it's got a label on it. Meal ingredients, again, we fill them in for the same reasons of the allergens. The dishwasher has a 65-degree setting on it. Yep, you don't have to do all the washing up. We have a dishwasher. And then empty the waste after the session, just to keep pests at bay. Really, we have had problems in the past, don't have now, but it is an old building and it is with food, you know, serving food all the time. So yeah, they get taken off site or taken outside at the end of the sessions. So Sarah mentioned COVID, but we are seeing it more. There obviously, we know there are no restrictions now. We do have COVID test kits available. So obviously you have to buy them at the moment, but if you would like them as our volunteers, we can give them to you. So if you want to have someone stand by if you feel unwell, test before your shift, and then stay away until you have a negative test result. And I mean, masks, we do have still a stock of masks. I'm seeing people wear them more now, but obviously it's totally personal choice. Food safety, handling food, 48 hours if you've suffered from sickness and diarrhea. So it's just let us know again, and yeah, excuse yourself from shifts. And I think we're at the end. Yes, so thank you for volunteering. The volunteer agreement I mentioned right at the beginning should have received a link, but when you signed up as a volunteer, but it's on the tablet that we have in drop-in, which all the, I say paperwork, but a lot of it's done on an electronic tablet. So ask the drop-in leader. Any questions, any concerns, get in touch. We're here to help and support you guys as well. So it's all about making sure you're not going home with stuff that you know you're concerned about the guests. Okay.